Welcome, Desmond, to the Homefullness show. I'm so excited to have you. You sound like someone of my own heart and philosophy when it comes to housing, and that's why I reached out to you. So, welcome. Just to tell the listeners, where are you at the moment?
I am located in Raleigh, North Carolina, in the United States. Specifically, Southeast Raleigh is where I focus and where I'm from.
Okay, great. And as we spoke before, that's where my mother was living in the United States. And I've lived in North Carolina for a couple years. So that's really cool that we have that in common as well. I thought we'd start out just with the question of what does homefulness mean to you?
Absolutely. Homefullness, to me, I equate it to community. The way I think about community, an internal process, the software of the community, and that is us as humans interacting. You getting to know your neighbor, having gatherings that are just there just to pull people together and have conversation, be in community with one another. There's also a hardware that helps facilitate some of that. But when I think of homefulness, I think of community, and especially in the States and specifically in Raleigh and Southeast Raleigh, where I'm from, we have gotten away from operating as a community. It is something that I am doing my part from the built environment aspect and community and development to get that back because humans are not meant to be by ourselves. There's no point in history where we were by ourselves. Anytime in history, you just point a finger and we were in groups. We were in community. That's the only way we survived this long. And we have to be a community. We have to get back to that. And here in the States, because of the way we decided to go about development, it was what I call a failed experiment. It was an experiment once they came back from the war and the GI Bill and suburban sprawl started to happen. We started to get away from how we used to build and how we used to be a community. And I think that it has had an effect on so many levels on health, on mental health, on race relations, income. So many different aspects are affected because of how we chose to build. We have to get back to building with the community in mind. That's what comes to mind when I think of homeowners. I think of community and that being a cornerstone of what we need to focus on.
What is the most interesting neighborhood that you've ever been in or seen?
Interesting. I mean, there's a bunch of different neighborhoods that I could highlight, but the neighborhood that made me who I am and gave me the viewpoint that I have on the world is Southeast Raleigh. It's the reason why I came back home to do this work. I could go somewhere else and make a lot more money than I make right now, but to me, it wasn't about the money. I was given a gift by growing up in Southeast Raleigh, and it gave me a sense of pride. It taught me to walk in rooms with my head high. It told me that I mattered. I experienced real community, and I know what it did for me growing up as a child in this area. My oldest daughter is 17, just graduated from high school. My baby girl is 7. And I wanted to create a space and be a part of the change that would give them that same badge of honor, that same almost like a Superman cape that I feel like I have. I wear it like a badge of honor. There are other communities that are cool that I love some of the things that they have, but for me, the coolest community was the one that made me who I am and gave me my viewpoint on the world, my viewpoint on human interaction, and my viewpoint on the built environment, which is Southeast Raleigh, gave me that viewpoint.
So, what was it about? What were the dynamics that made that shape you?
Going back to the community part, knowing your neighbors. I still know what it feels to come home on a Friday evening and have some of my neighbors out in their front lawn on their front porch playing music and frying fish because it's Friday and the weather's good and they're just like, hey, I'm out to fry some fish, come on over. And to just sit and commune and be in community with people. It was sitting on the elders' front porches. I spent hours sitting on my grandmother's front porch and just people watching and her telling stories about what this space used to look like when she was a child and people walked past and she would talk to them and they would know who she is. My kids even currently don't have the freedom to go throughout the city that I had, because my mom didn't worry about what I was doing because there was a community. And if I was doing bad things over there, by the time I got home, word would get back that I was doing something I had no business doing. It was more software than hardware. We didn't quite have the hardware, but we had the software. It was having gatherings that didn't have to be formal. It's a nice day outside. I'm about to go get some hot dogs and hamburgers. Everybody come over, and so we can just commune and have a good time. And I think if we do that more and be in community and relationship with one another, there's so many things that get solved. Differences get solved. Preconceived notions and biases and prejudiceness, it gets absolved, because that's part of the urban sprawl. I think affected that is because before, if you live in close proximity to people that you might not relate to, or you might have a difference of opinion, when from outside we might talk about a particular group, you're like, well, I don't experience that. But when you go in suburban sprawl, you only live by people that think the way you think, that look the way you look, that talk the way you talk, walk the way you walk. It becomes an echo chamber. And so now you think that the way you think and the way that person think, and it's all the same, and you never get another opinion, and you never get another voice. That is how you create division, because it's hard, especially in this day and age, to be racist up close. Very hard to be racist up close. It's hard to be racist when you got to see your neighbor when you go to the mailbox, when you take your trash to the corner. It's easy to be racist when all of the people that believe you are in your neighborhood and you don't have to see anybody that you don't like. It's easy to come up with preconceived notions. Those were the things that Southeast Raleigh gave me from a software perspective in our neighborhood, that I am trying to affect the software, but I'm also doing the work to change the hardware as well.
Mhm. Yeah. What got you interested in doing this work on the hardware? And so you mentioned suburban sprawl, a type of housing that more like suburbia that keeps everybody in their separate little drive up my driveway into my garage, don't need to know or interact. I'm assuming that has been wanting to counter that and foster this way that you grew up and recreate neighborhoods that have that feel based on the
Mhm.
hardware, being able to allow for that software to emerge.
Absolutely. So my introduction into the built environment space is a long journey. My degree in undergrad is in psychology. I don't have a official degree in anything in the built environment planning or anything like that. Everything I know now has come from me having a slightly unhealthy obsession with the built environment. I say unhealthy because I don't recommend anybody have this level of involvement in the built environment. If I'm being honest, I don't have hobbies. I work and I spend time with my family and I'm in the community. It's all circular. It took me a while to get to the point where the outside world valued my opinion and my
Mhm.
perspective. Even some of the things that I write about and the ideas that I have, a lot of them aren't new. My wife has heard all of these ideas for years. I almost treat it like a working thesis, put my thoughts out there, and it's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking based on what I'm seeing. My real introduction into real estate was my mom and my stepdad own a couple rental homes in Southeast Raleigh next to our home, the home that I grew up in. And so I was like, well, let me learn about that. And this was after college. I was like, let me learn about real estate and see if I can help them in any way. And that started my deep dive into real estate. I didn't know that I would like it that much. And so I went in full tilt. I would learn anything. I was obsessive about it. I podcast, YouTube videos. I didn't watch TV anymore. That's all that I consumed. So it allowed me to take in a lot of information. And then I was like, okay, let me do a flip. Let me go in and renovate a home. And we did that a couple times. Me and my brother realized like, hey, let's rethink how we're doing this. So what we did was we found a way, because flipping, what that did in my community is it took a pretty much affordable property and renovated it and increased and forced the equity into it. I was seeing who was actually purchasing the properties, and it wasn't people that were from that neighborhood. I didn't like that, and it had nothing to do with race thing. It had everything to do with their demeanor and how they operated. So I was like, oh no, I can't be a part of this. I need to find another way. And so we found some creative ways to do some creative deals, such as turning walkout basements, single family homes with walkout basements into duplexes, turning split level homes into a single family with an ADU. We were able to do that. We were able to put veterans in those homes through a program called VASH. It's like Section 8 for veterans. That was my introduction. That was like, oh, whatever this is, I like it. Because I was able to give a home to like one of our tenants, single mom, veteran, 3 kids, and had an eviction on the record and couldn't get another place. And we were able to give her a home. And so, like, that feeling that I got, I was like, oh, whatever that is, I need more of that. And I was already involved in the community. My mom was really, really involved, and she would also take me. I'm the oldest. My brother's 5 years younger than me, and so she would take me because I was a little more well behaved. And she would take me to city council meetings and community meetings, and I would be the kid in the back of the room playing with my action figures quietly. But what that showed me was that I needed to be an active participant in my community. I didn't need to just sit by and let things happen. So that's what I did. I was like, no, I'm going to find out what's going on. I'm going to go to the meetings, city council meetings. I'm going to volunteer. And so then I started to learn about development. And I was like, okay, this is where I can have. I was trying to figure out how I could break into the built environment and be able to support my family without feeling like I was siphoning from the community. And I was like, oh, I can develop rentals, quality rentals for my community. And so I was a part of a community engagement process in Raleigh that was transformational for me. It changed the way I approached development. Prior to that, if you would have asked me what I was going to be, I would have told you I was going to be the biggest Black developer in Southeast Raleigh. I was going to develop the most units. After that community engagement process, I realized that's not actually what I want. That was more ego talking. What I actually want is I want to be able to develop things in my community that the community actually needs, and not things that I think they need, but the things that I heard them tell me that they need. And developers was coming in our community and saying, hey, you need this here. And it's like, well, did you talk to anybody? Don't need that. That's why nobody's there, because we never needed that. That got me into having to take a pivot from development, and was like, oh, well, if I'm going to be this community minded developer, I don't know enough about the built environment. I don't know enough about the historical context. I don't know enough about planning and urban design. And so I went on a deep dive, YouTube rabbit holes, 4 or 5 hours, books galore, and started to learn about the built environment. And that started to give me perspectives that I now write about today.
So have you actually done then? You did say you have a family, a woman that with her family was able to come in. Are you
Mhm.
doing sort of incremental development then?
So, what being a part of the community engagement project that I was talking about, with a really big project that's going to be in Southeast Raleigh, what that taught me was that I don't want to, there's right now, affordable housing is built by big developers that are building 200 units at a time. And that's not what I wanted, because those developments, what that requires you to do is you spend a lot of time behind the computer and in spreadsheets and in meetings. And I wanted to spend my time on grandma's front porches and in kitchens and living rooms. That's where I wanted to spend my time to learn what the people needed. It completely shifted the type of project. So what I usually tell people is my max is probably 50 units. That means that I can still do that within my community. Once you get above that, then we're talking about full scale planned unit development. Some of that is on the outskirts of town or larger tracts of land. While I do think that they're needed, that wasn't going to be my role. I feel like I could have a much more impactful role. The way I try to operate is that I look at myself as, the only analogy I can give is like I have a tool belt. And most developers come in, all they have is a hammer. And they try to put their hammer in every community that it possibly can. And it's the same product all over. And they just go around the hammer. And to me, I'm like, no, 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 let's see what the community needs. So I might do a single family home because that's what this community needs. And my next development might be a 15 unit because that's what they need. And then I might do a mixed use with 15 units up top and retail at the bottom. That community needs. So I have a full tool belt to different ideas. but it's all about what the community actually needs. And that's the one I pull out. And so I'm not coming to it with a predetermined development idea. Even on the advocacy side of all of this, I try to go at it from a systematic point of view. Like I want to make the space easier for somebody else that comes behind me. And so I could get a lot of money from the city just because of the relationships that I've built and the track record that I have. But I tell them I don't care about one-offs. Like if you're gonna give me money, then we're gonna create a fund that is gonna give money in perpetuity. It's not just gonna be to Desmond because everybody's not gonna. I don't expect anybody to have the level of commitment to this that I do. I don't expect that from people. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be involved because they aren't as obsessed as I am. There's still people that care about it and they should still have an opportunity. And so I'm working at it from multiple fronts. I'm speaking to the city and telling them and giving them feedback on, hey, if this is what you want from small developers, let me tell you why it's not happening and show you the things that y'all have put in place that prevents me from doing what you're asking me to do. But I also hold my community accountable. I'm not above that. I don't just talk to the city and say it's y'all problem. I turn back to the community and say, hey, it's our job. This is our community. This is ours. I try to empower them and say, hey, the city works for us, not the other way around. They do what we decide should go in our community. And we have to walk and operate. And sometimes we, especially in the Black community, because and a lot of it is some of the elders, and I understand their sentiment because they've been a part of processes where when you go into the community engagement session, it's not really a community engagement. I'm just informing you on what I'm about to do. Decision's already made. I just needed to check a box. And they've seen that done year after year, decade after decade. And so they've become numb to it. And so I understand it from that perspective. But what I've told them is say, hey, Raleigh isn't that same city, but also if we aren't a part of the change that Raleigh is going through, it's going to change no matter what. That train has left the station. Raleigh has been a top 5 city for the past 15 plus years. That train has left the station, is never coming back. You got two options. Raleigh either grows with us or it will grow without us. Those are the only two options we have. And if we want to be a part of that change, we got to be active. Try to get my generation. I'm 36 years old, and a lot of the people that were kind of fighting this fight, they're older. They're in their 80s, they're in their 70s. And it's like you shouldn't still be on the front lines fighting at 70 years old. You should be more in an advisor role telling the younger generation how to navigate. And that's not what's happening. Hey, this is our community. We are the ones that are supposed to be bringing these things up. We are the ones that's supposed to be yelling at the mountaintops and beating our chests and making sure that we're heard. And so that is what I try to do. And I try to come at it from a positive angle, but also I hold people accountable. Someone, because I know and I feel confident that I have done enough research and enough reading to fully understand the entirety of the built environment more than probably 90% of humans on this earth. I'm confident going in and saying certain things to city officials and holding them accountable and saying, hey, I've told the planning department this. I love all of the people at the city of Raleigh planning, but I've told them, I said, hey, you don't have a person in your department that knows more about real estate than me. You don't. And you have people that have a master's in planning and all of that. I still guarantee you they have not read and listened. I was like, there's no way. I said, because y'all have hobbies, y'all do things outside of work. So yeah, a lot, but what I realized is that, especially in the built environment in terms of Black representation, I can't say, hey, I'm not going to do it. He can do it. There's no he. He's not there. I've been in conference and I look around, I'm literally the only one that looks like me. So there's nobody to pass the baton to. It's like, oh, no, this is my job. This is why I was here. This is why I was given these gifts and the ideas and vision and thought process, because I am the one that's supposed to be doing this work. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It absolutely fills my heart to do this work. My wife notices it. She was the reason why I made a pivot out of sales, because she told me, when you leave out to go to work, you come back drained. I can see it. When you go out and you're doing stuff in the community, you come back wired. And she was like, I don't know how we're going to do it, but whatever that is, you should be doing that. That is what you're supposed to be doing. And so, yeah, this is something that I'm going to be doing until they put me in the dirt.
On that note, how are you empowering your community, asking them to be accountable? And I saw you had education as one of the
Mhm.
things that you do. And I had mentioned the course that I'm looking to develop. What are you doing to educate and build capability within your community so you've got Desmond's able
Yeah,
to work around?
absolutely. So on two fronts. The first front is in my, I call it planning adjacent because I'm not actually a planner, but I do a lot of planning-esque work. Try to give and teach capacity, give skills so that way these nonprofits can go out and do proper community engagement. That's the first thing. The second thing came from a personal pain point of mine when I was trying to acquire knowledge about being a developer. I think it's by design that it is almost impossible to figure out how to be a developer. I could chart a path. I can go on Google right now and chart a path easier to be a heart surgeon than I can to a developer. I can go find exactly step by step of what I need to do to be a heart surgeon. It's not a step by step process to be a developer. And I think that that is a problem. And it was hard for me to try to acquire pure development knowledge. And so I was taking all types of development courses. Anyone that would have me, I would take a development course. And they didn't have any development academies or courses here in Raleigh, but also the ones that I took, none of them talked about the community. It was all about development. That's not where development started. That's not where it should start. And so what it ended up turning into from some of my writings, I write on LinkedIn, but I also write on my Substack. And my Substack was just the emerging developer, because that's what I consider myself, an emerging developer. And so I started to put my ideas on paper. I started to put a thought process together, and that turned into a curriculum. And then that turned into me having conversations with banks and lenders and pulling together this full development course that I'm working on that takes somebody, because my goal, at least in the first iteration of this, is looking for people like me. The people like me and you, we were gonna get here no matter what. I wanted for the regular person to be able to come in, because I think in order for us to close our housing gap, we need 100 regular folk that are building a duplex here and a 5 unit over there and one duplex a year. If you get 100, 200 of those people in the community build, it's over 5 years, we can get rid of this housing crisis. And I was like, well, I can help train them. And so I wanted to take them from learning community engagement all the way through and fill in the gaps of certain academies that I've been a part of. I want to take you through the education. I also want practitioners to come teach. There's different having a conversation with a developer that's active and someone that is talking about development in the classroom. It's just completely different. I wanted real world practitioners to be there giving this information and matching them with funding. There's going to be a pitch day where they're going to have an opportunity to pitch to lenders, to pitch to the city. I'm working with the city of Raleigh to see if I can get them to donate some of the city lots. So that way, whoever wins the pitch day, or the two people that win a pitch day, they now have two lots that are given to them by the city that they now can act on. And so that is where a lot of my education focus comes in. And it comes from a stem of like, I want to make it easier for the person behind me. I want to make it easier. It should not be this hard to do quality development in your community, because the reality is the people that are from there are best equipped and have the most knowledge to know what that community needs versus some outsider that has never been there. And then also part of it is economics. I'm building developments in my community. I live here. So I spend money at the local grocery store and the local coffee shop and the local restaurant and donate to the PTA and the school baseball team. If you hire some big developer out of New York, when they finish, all of that money goes back to New York. I wanted the things that I do to be my developments to be a community asset. And that's not what I saw. And so that's where my education piece comes in, is trying to take what I've learned and my thought process and approach to development and trying to create more community minded developers.
Have you thought about how the community land trust model could be able to fit in? Getting land might be easier if there's a land trust involved?
Absolutely. So I work with the Raleigh Area Land Trust. It's fairly new, maybe 5 or 6 years old. There's an older one that started in the 50s, Durham Community Land Trust. I'm involved in help them, not as much as I help Raleigh Area Land Trust. I help them from a planning strategy perspective. And so the land trust model is a necessary tool in keeping home ownership affordable in
Mhm.
perpetuity. I look at it as one of the cogs in the total wheel of creating a community ecosystem that is not just affordable, but also economically thrives. Because I also focus on making sure that in my community, which is predominantly Black, that we don't concentrate poverty in one area. That's what tends to happen in the Black community, is that all of the affordable housing goes over to the Black community. And when you do that, you decimate the economy around it, because those people that are in those affordable units, they don't have the discretionary income to go patronize the restaurant or the coffee shop. In the developments that I try to put together, I try not to make it strictly affordable.
Mhm.
Try to make it mixed income. My thought process is that if you have a mixed use development, the barista at the coffee shop should be able to stay in that development. But there also should be somebody at the top that wants to pay a little more for a little nicer unit. And that's okay. And you give them that nicer unit to help subsidize the barista at the coffee shop downstairs. That's typically how I approach it.
Yeah, I am a proponent of mixed so that the one can offset the other. You've got mixed life experiences and et cetera. So, yeah, and the land trust model isn't an all or nothing, like this whole thing
Mhm.
is a community land trust or it's not, but quite often it can be a section of a couple units of, which is really important to highlight that it's a tool for individual units, not just one big piece of land. So, what are some of the frustrations and challenges that you've run into with trying to do this kind of development?
One, there's a semi invisible racial barrier that exists in the development and built environment world. It is, for lack of a better term, it's an old white man's game. And a lot of them don't want you in the room. So it has taken me years to build up enough social equity to be able to have a voice that people listen to. That has been difficult. What has also been difficult in this environment is the funding for these projects, because all of our loan products aren't really geared towards this size of a project. They're either
Mhm.
geared, like if I'm doing a single family duplex triplex, that's fine. But when I start wanting to do a quad or a fiveplex or a mixed use with 12 apartments upstairs, the funding gets real sketchy. That has been very difficult to navigate, which is why I try to have relationships and conversations with CDFIs and different banks and essentially kind of sell them on the product that I'm trying to create. Another part is, some of it is there's a frustration level that I have with trying to explain to mainly municipalities on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, because a lot of times they are looked at as the authority. While I understand most cities are risk averse because they need to be, the reality, and I've explained this to the city, is that if you always play it safe, you're going to get the same product over and over again. What I've explained to my city is that Raleigh is at an inflection point. And so either we are going to exist with a certain texture that only exists in Raleigh, or we will become Anywhere USA. And I was like, if you keep doing these regular, what ends up happening and what's safe here in Raleigh or in North Carolina, almost period, is 3 or 4 story garden style walk up apartments. And that's literally what all developers build. Even the developers that are doing 200 units, they just build multiple apartments. And what I told him, I said, hey, go stand in front of that apartment and take a picture and send it to somebody that doesn't live in North Carolina or Raleigh and
Mhm.
ask them to tell you where you are, and they will not be able to do it. And I was like, if you want to live in Raleigh, then cool, have a blast. I'll do my own thing. You do your own thing over there. But I don't think that that's actually what you want to do. And so you have to be innovative. And so I try to push Raleigh to be more innovative. I try to lead by example. Whenever I offer criticism, I can be very, very critical of the city. If I come to them with the criticism, I've already thought about the solution. I'm not just coming to you saying, hey, that sucks. And then I'm going back home for you to figure out. I'm saying, hey, that sucks. This is why it sucks. And here's is what we can do to make it better. And I found a guy who did it before and you can talk to him. And so I try to do that. It is now being received in a much better light. Before it was met kind of combatively because I was holding them accountable in a way that they had never been held accountable for. Most of them have learned that I'm only giving them feedback because I care. And that is the frustrating part about doing this work in your own community is that I've explained that to them, told them, hey, I understand that you work for the city, but you don't care about this more than I do. I want to work in conjunction with you. I want to work in tandem. I want us to achieve this together. I'm not saying that, hey, I need you to lay out the red carpet for me. That's not what I'm asking. I've said to the city council and presented to the city council that, hey, you need to make developers' lives a little harder. You don't require enough from the
That's
developers
right.
come in my community. I was like, I'm a developer and I'm telling you that you should make me do more for the community. I said, because you know what I'm going to do? I don't care about something being difficult. It's more difficult. If it's impossible, that's different. But if it's difficult, I don't care about difficult. I said, but you're allowing these developers to come into these communities and extract value and leave and never come back. I said, no, you need to hold them accountable. They should be accountable to the community. And you mentioned that one of my articles talking about if you are a part of the block, then you deserve to be in the work and you should be in the work. And that's part of it. If you're going to do anything and get anything from the community, you have to be in the work as well. You can't just leave and take the resources. And when it's time to work and it's time to help, you're like, that's not me, I'm going. Then you don't need to be in our community to start with. And so navigating through some of that has been kind of difficult because to me, it's clear as day in my head, literally how clear it is in my head. And trying to explain it to people where it doesn't compute that way has been a challenge. It has been frustrating. There's a political game and climate that kind of there's an undercurrent of that as well. And I don't do well with politics because I say how I feel. I've had elders that will ask me because they know how active I am. They're like, hey, we need you to run for city council. And I literally tell them, I am going to mess up the church money if I do that. Because I'm going to say things in those meetings that I probably shouldn't be saying because that's not where you should say it. And I'm just going to say it because it need to be said and nobody's talking about it. Because I do it now in every conversation that I have, even when I'm in my planning work and I'm doing a strategic plan for a city, I'm sitting down with all of the city staff and the mayor and they're going through like, these are our priorities. And I'm like, hey, there's no level of restoration for the Black community written in this program. We need to figure that out. Yeah, I'm going to be the one to bring it up every time. And so I realized that about myself. I wouldn't change the difficult parts for the world. I think it gives you character, it gives you a patina to know that I was able to achieve all of this. I was met with headwinds at every turn. And that didn't stop me from getting to where I wanted to get. And I operate from the premise of like, I'm going to be doing this until they put me in the dirt, whether it takes me 2 years or 5, or it takes me 15. When I get there, there's nobody that's going to be able to stop me. Because right now, a lot of times I'm saying, hey, can you please? There's going to come a point in time where I'm going to have enough leverage and power where I won't have to say, hey, can I please? I'm going to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You want to be a part of it? If not, get out of my way. And that's how I operate. This stuff is difficult, but life is difficult. Anything that's worth changing, some of the great change agents and communities, some of the great revolutionaries, they were going up against way worse conditions than I'm going up against. Like I don't fear for my life right now. Doing this work, fearing for their lives, fearing for the
Yeah.
well-being of their children.
I
And
was just mentioning Wangari Maathai. We don't
Mhm.
have enough sheroes as well. Who do you aspire? Somebody who is a great leader. And so many people can name on one hand all men, but not even one is a woman. And I said, like Wangari Maathai. And she's hardly known in the general public, but in her field of ecosystem restoration and anti colonial and for the rights of the indigenous peoples. She's very well known. And it's like looking at her and her decades of work with children, life at risk, getting smuggled around in the back of the boot of a car. And sometimes her whole family was a bit at risk because of her radical stance. And basically, her stance wasn't even that radical, telling the Kenyan government, this is a national park that is ours as a country. You're not to be selling it off to the logging companies. It's not yours to sell off. It's ours as a community. Getting women to stand in front of the entrance of a national park with the bulldozers or loggers coming in and replanting trees. That was literally putting her life at risk. But I look at her, think she, for decades, was in it for the long haul. And with all the risks, she kept going. And in her field, she is a shero. People can look at her and say, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And I think for people like you and I that are up, as you say, headwinds all the time, pretty much every direction is a headwind. But if we say we're in it for the long haul and we have very good reasons for doing what we're doing, we can, and as you were saying around having a good partner, I think that helps as well. If we all, you have some stability in your home and in your relationship, that definitely helps people like us to be able to do the harder work, to go out there and have these hard conversations and things not always going our way and saying, oh my, how can they not get it? It's just so obvious. And if we can come back to somebody that reinforces for us, you are doing the right thing, and reinforce what they see in us that we bring to our communities, it gives us the energy to go out and do it again. So it's nice to hear you recognize your wife as part of the equation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the smartest decision I ever made, was marrying that woman. It is not even close.
I kind of have the opposite story to you, is that I married the wrong man, the right man to have my daughter, because and my son, they are
A
fantastic
blessing.
children.
Mhm.
But as a partner, he did run off and left us. I think for me, the part of my fuel is that I have had the housing hardship myself, not having another breadwinner, another partner, and having housing instability quite regularly because of that has really been fuel. It reminds me every day there are good people struggling with housing that shouldn't be struggling.
Yep.
And that is part of the strength that I get to carry on doing this work. We're
Absolutely.
going to be drawing it to a close soon, but I wanted to end on a high note. Two questions. What are you celebrating that you've achieved? And what do you recommend for others who have a similar calling? Resources, YouTube, podcasts, anything like that? Maybe just a
Yeah.
few list and I'll include it so that we feel like we're leaving people with some tools of empowerment and that we're celebrating that there are successes in this space.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm celebrating kind of in my personal life is that my oldest daughter, I had her when I was 18. So she has literally watched me grow up. And to be at that milestone really huge. And so that in my personal life, that's probably what we're celebrating right now. Professionally, what I'm celebrating, the reality is that, if I'm being honest, it's gonna sound real cliche, but like I was doing it for free for years. And so the fact that I
Mhm.
get to provide for my family and I get to wake up every day and do this work, my heart is full. Like, you can't talk to my brother about the concept of how you can never repay your mom for what they gave you, or you can never repay your grandma. What are you going to give them? And there's a prophet. His name is Irmias Ashkedon. He's right there. His rapper name is Nipsey Hussle, and I call him a prophet because he is one. But in an interview, he said, "How can you ever repay your mom or your granny for what they did?" He's like, "The way you repay them is how you live and how you show up in the world and the
Mhm.
person that you are." And that's what I like. What do people say to my mom about me when I'm not there? And I want her to be proud of whatever they say about me when I'm not there. I want her to know that everything that she did and everything that she sacrificed, it culminated in that child doing this. That's how I operate every day. Like, I'm thankful. I've been in jobs that I hated every minute of it. And I still went to work every day because I needed to provide for my family. And to be able to do it in my community, in something that I deeply care about and I'm deeply passionate about every day, I'm good. I'm fine. I am great.
Yay. That's a
Yep.
big celebration. Yeah. And not many
Yep.
people can say that. So well done, you.
Absolutely.
you're a role model for probably 90% of the planet to be able to do what you love and do it where you're living. And yeah, that's wonderful to
Yep.
hear.
Yep.
Celebrating
Yep.
that with you. Yay. So
Absolutely.
much to learn from
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
I appreciate it. And then as far as books or podcasts or how to get involved, first book I'll give is The Color of Law. It talks about how race has affected the built environment, from redlining to urban renewal to things that were put in place to marginalize a specific community. Because sometimes adults, because we don't teach a lot of this in school, don't have the full context of what America actually is. We only know the Disney version we get in our textbooks, but it's much deeper and it's much worse than what we all think. And so, about that historical context, then you can start to make sense of the entire world. You can start to make sense of, okay, this is why this community looks like this, because it has systematically been put in place for it to look like that. Another one I'll do is The Life and Death of a Great American City. That's exactly what the book is.
Okay.
As far as as a disruptor, I pray to be the level of disruptor that she was. Like, to not have a built environment background and to take on titans in New York is remarkable in the work that she was able to accomplish. Pray that I'm able to be that level of disruptor and have that
Mhm.
level of change and impact on the world. Another book is Strong Towns. That book is really good. It talks about the possibilities of cities and what other cities look like and how we can make our cities better. And those are probably the top books that I would recommend starting at. You can go down different rabbit holes in that regard. It all depends on what your particular interest is in the development. There's so many different types of development, and they all have their own little quirks. But you're looking to get into community minded and forward development, those books will get you on a good start.
Okay. And how about podcasts? One or two that you recommend?
I haven't listened to too many podcasts lately because I do a lot of audiobooks. While I'm working, I'll have an audiobook playing in the
Mm.
background pretty much at all times. TikTok pages that I follow and social media pages, there's a gentleman, he calls himself the Happy Planner. His name is John, a happy urbanist, that's what he calls himself. And I've learned so much about the built environment. Like, he knows it from a transportation traffic level, from a placemaking level, from a site activation level, and it has been very transformative to see the stuff that he's talking about, some of the ideas, and him explaining why things look the way they look, why the curb looks here, why is there a bump out at the stoplight, all of those things he talks about why those things came about. That has been really cool to kind of listen to and take in. But yeah, as far as the podcast, I used to be a super podcast junkie. So I had a bunch of real estate, but they weren't really development focused. They were just general
Mm.
real estate podcasts when I was in my trying to learn phase. But as I started to know exactly what realm I wanted to go down, a lot of my time spent reading articles of my peers. I follow Incremental Developer Alliance, Strong Towns. There's a gentleman by the name of Monty Anderson that does really cool adaptive reuse of old shopping centers that I'm gonna steal one of those ideas and do it here in Raleigh. But nowadays, I'm listening to more practitioners that are actually doing it and reading what they're doing. I spend most of my time learning about urban design and urban planning context and history and learning all of those things. I'm
I'm
a forever
pretty,
learner,
oh, good. Yeah. So
forever
I'll
learner. I
share
always
that.
want to learn stuff.
If you subscribe to the Homefullness show, then you'll get alerted when I have
Yep.
released. And the Homefullness show does have some episodes that you might appreciate as well. Okay, well,
Absolutely.
I think that we have come to the end of our time. Are there any
Yeah.
last words that you'd like to share with the listeners?
What I'll say is that if you want to be a developer, if you want your community to be better, then you should be the one doing it. Don't look to the person to your left or to your right. You should be the one doing it. If you don't know enough of your neighbors, then go knock on neighbors' doors and have a conversation. If you don't feel like certain things are happening in your community, then go to the city council and speak on it. Be an active participant in your community. Make sure that when you are an active participant, that you are not hoarding information. If you learn something, your job as a community member is to disseminate that information to the community. We the community is our power. That's where we have our power. That's where we have our control, and we have to take ownership of it. It's not something that happens accidentally. It happens on purpose. Community isn't like a friendship. When you have friends, y'all are like-minded. A community is a responsibility. I don't always enjoy having to spend my free time going to a listening session or going to a community engagement event, but it's my responsibility as a community member to do so.
Mhm.
And so I want people to understand that being in community with someone is a responsibility. It is not always convenient, nor should it be, but it is necessary. And we all have a role to play. And if you see something that doesn't exist, go do it. Don't wait for somebody else. You are the one, look in the mirror and get it done. So that's what I'll say. Challenge the listeners to do something in their community and not wait around for somebody else to do it for them.
Yeah, that we can each have empowerment. And I think with how you and I work, we really do build collaborations and connections. All it takes is one person to speak up, and they won't be alone for very long. There'll be others
Hmm.
who say, yeah, I also feel that way, or I also want that thing. And very quickly, then there'll be a little group formed. You just need to speak up, do one thing, and you'll soon have others to work as a team together.